Everyone, thank you for joining us. My name is Simmons Bunton. I am the editor-in-chief of Terrain.org, and here in Tucson, Arizona, I respectfully acknowledge my presence on the traditional and ancestral lands of the O'odham and the Pascua Yaqui, as well as the beautiful saguaro and creosote populated valleys and hills and arroyos nestled between the Catalina, Rincon, Santa Rita, Tortolita, and Tucson mountains. So again, welcome, and let me admit somebody in real quickly. Okay. So I want to thank our host and sponsor, Allison Hawthorne Deming. I want to thank our readers, Allison Adelle Hedge, who is, by the way, in case you haven't heard, a 2022 National Book Award finalist in poetry, Lynn Masih, and Suzanne Frischkorn. And of course, I want to thank you, our audience, for joining us for what I know is going to be another exceptional reading, and we'll have the opportunity for Q&A after that as well. If your connection becomes slow, you may want to turn off your video. In all cases, please remain muted, but you are welcome to post your questions and other positive feedback in chat, and I'm sure we'll open it up to audio questions during the Q&A portion of this as well. We are recording this and all readings and conversations, and we'll make those available from Terrain.org and our YouTube channel by the end of the week. We'd love it if you would officially follow our YouTube channel too, which is at youtube.com/c/terrain.org, or just go to YouTube, and I think if you search Terrain.org, we should, hopefully in a non-offensive way, come up. This is our second reading of the fall. Next month in November, we'll host a reading in concert with the Institute on American Indian Arts. We haven't finalized that yet, so keep an eye out for the date and the readers and the registration links, all of which will be available on Terrain.org as well as our Facebook page, and announced via our e-newsletter. And if you don't subscribe to that, you can do so at the bottom of the Terrain.org website. As with this reading, which again is very kindly sponsored by Allison Hawthorne Deming, we welcome other sponsors for our upcoming readings. If you are interested, please message me in chat or send a note to info@terrain.org. Now, a word about Terrain.org, really a couple announcements. The world's first online journal of place, publishing since 1998 and celebrating now our 25th anniversary. First, we have partnered with the Sowell Family Collection and Literature Community and the Natural World, as well as Texas Tech University Press, to offer the inaugural Sowell Emerging Writers Prize, a new annual book prize for a first or second book that begins with nonfiction this year, poetry next year, and fiction the third year. The prize is $1,000 with a $25 entry fee, and submissions are open through October 31st via Terrain.org and our submittable submission portal. And we will announce a winner in February or thereabouts. Details at terrain.org/submit. So if you have a manuscript that's burning a hole in your pocket, send it our way. We would like it to burn a hole in our minds. Okay, and really exciting, also inaugurally, running through November 2nd, Terrain.org is hosting our first ever online auction and fundraiser, which you can find, and I'll put this link in the chat here in just a moment, at us.givergy.com/terrain.org, or just go to terrain.org, where it's linked on our top menu as well as the homepage. Let me post the link in chat right now, I say in my notes, but I'm going to read the notes and I'll post it there in a minute. So you can now bid on a wide array of experiences, artwork, literary goods, and more. Take a hike on Grand Manan, New Brunswick, with host Allison Hawthorne Deming. Join an Ask the Author session with Allison Adelle Hedge. Join Suzanne Frischkorn for a critique of your poem. Have a beer and go birding in South Carolina with MacArthur Genius Grant fellow, I don't know if that's an official term, J. Drew Lanham. Tour the New Urbanist community of Savannah in Tucson, Arizona, and then have lunch or dinner just outside Saguaro National Park East with yours truly. I'm going to pause there to let somebody in the room. All right. Let's see. So we've also added new items to bid on since the auction began last week. And one of those opened up today, and then the rest of those will open up on the 27th. Those include book packages from our friends at Torrey House Press, Trinity University Press, and Wandering Angus Press. And some auction items, which include Writing Your Birth Story with Janice Ray, Demystifying the Publication Process with Kurt Caswell, and a Wild Game Dinner with Chris Dombrowski, whose gorgeous new book, The River You Touch, we just excerpted on terrain.org, open on the 27th. So go check it out after the reading, of course. And if you prefer not to bid on something, we would, of course, be grateful for your tax-deductible donation. All right, now let us turn to tonight's reading, followed by Q&A. I will be posting terrain.org and book links in the chat in support of our readers this evening. But if you missed those or want to find other books by tonight's readers or other terrain.org contributors, hop on over to our bookshop page at bookshop.org/shop/terrain.org or find the link under the About in terrain.org website navigation menu. Also, be sure to post your thoughts and questions in chat, as we look forward to an engaging conversation following the readings. Okay, and again, finally, thank you for joining us. It's my pleasure now to introduce Allison Hawthorne Deming. My friend, mentor, thesis advisor, and all-around spectacular person, Allison Hawthorne Deming, is the author of 12 books of poetry and nonfiction, most recently A Woven World on Fashion, Fishermen, and the Sardine Dress, which also was excerpted in terrain.org. Her work has received a Guggenheim Fellowship, NEA Fellowships, Stegner Fellowship, and Walt Whitman Award from the Academy of American Poets, among other honors. Excuse me. Regents Professor Emerita at the University of Arizona, Allison lives in Tucson, Arizona, and Grand Manan, New Brunswick, Canada. Allison, thank you so much for joining us to moderate and sponsor what I know will be a wonderful reading with Allison Adelle Hedge, Lynn Masih, and Suzanne Frischkorn. Take it away.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I am really thrilled to hear these three spectacular poets this afternoon, and always grateful to Simmons for all the events he convenes, both on the Terrain site and also with these special events. So great thanks to Simmons for all his work and his vision that has created this opportunity for us tonight. So I'll introduce each poet before they read in turn, and we are going to have Q&A. So if something comes up, you can pop it in the chat. We'll address any questions at the end after all three poets have read. So we'll begin with Suzanne Frischkorn. She is a Cuban-American poet. She's the author of Fixed Star from JackLeg Press in 2022, Girl on a Bridge, Lit Windowpane, both from Main Street Rag Press, and 5 chapbooks. She's a recipient of the Aldrich Poetry Award for her chapbook Springtide, selected by the eminent Mary Oliver, an Emerging Writers Fellowship from the Writers Center for her book Lit Windowpane, and an Individual Artist Fellowship from the Connecticut Commission on Culture and Tourism. She's an editor for $Poetry is Currency, and serves on the terrain.org editorial board. So please welcome Suzanne Frischkorn.
Thank you so much, Allison. And thank you. I'm so honored to be here tonight with Allison Hedge and Tara Masih. And I'm going to be reading, as you said, from Fixed Star that just came out with JackLeg. I'm going to begin with, there's a long sonnet sequence in this book called Cuban Polymeter, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I am going to begin with the first two poems in the book from Cuban Polymeter. Cuban Polymeters are these beautiful, colorful snails found only in Cuba, but that's all you really need to know. Cuban Polymeter. Birth cleaved me in half. The sea I grew legs in, now a dissonance, a fixed star. The Atlantic where I summer cannot diminish the dichotomy. This figurine, with its sash cinched by gold leaf, its delicate arm grafted with glue. It's the dinner fiesta I hear on the boardwalk, that green button of memory, an earring tucked into an envelope found in a bureau with the scarves. Found in a bureau with the scarves, an imprint of identity, a single gold ball stud, evidence of cultural piercing, a lace dress, a first language, all myths once we move north. Washed on shore, we lost our heritage. Sometimes it happens when you're standing. Watch yourself. Perhaps it's as effortless as drifting. The soft light of a street lamp on a November morning, taking the edge off the stars. My body as a communist country. Its betrayal, totalitarian, skin dry as parchment, lit by the slightest brush. The scent in our sheets sets off chimes, a measure until you return. The minutes I swallow whole. Castro, you've nothing in Cuba like my desire. My body's capitalism, greedy. It's a slow jam in a darkened room, keeping time with the DJ. It's lyric, the blue light of aging, shadows, desires waking. 10 years from now, we'll wonder at this. My body's exacting power, brooking no opposition. What it means to be Cuban, hyphenated. It means I'm on a journey. Is the soil blood red or brick red? To witness miles of tobacco's green waves. Yes, I know, no yearning for the island, or talk about a mango tree in the backyard, Carol City. What about burrs in the grass pricking my feet? Graffiti? My Cuban sitter built a tiled shrine to Mary, my only mother. I sat at her feet for days. What it means to be Cuban, hyphenated? I don't know. My father's from Cuba. I'm American. He wanted me to learn one language really well. Nascent. The quest brought its own interstellar medium in the end. She was matter between stars in a galaxy of stars. The yoked constellations, capitalist and communist, rang bright on her skin. Fidel, is it cold in Cuba? She is nascent still, because her body is here and she is not. A numinous zephyr lily of love, cloistral and cognizant, laminated to each star. Susanita is but one straya here. The lathe is the sinew and the cloche terracotta. Entiendo. The royal palms have closed up shop. I don't do a lot of banter. Apologies. The next poem is Cento. It's called Palm Tree Cento. This is not something I've just learned. There was a sphere with dark patches like mountains, and I swear by this stolen image, you should listen to what they are hinting. Over there, evil and good actually have faces. How I would like to believe in tenderness, to know that light falls and fills, often without our knowing. I am not speaking of rose windows. Here, After a meager diet of horizon is some scenery. All the leaves stuck out their tongues. I'm going to, then next to our numbers 9 and 10 of Cuban Palomita. It's an odd form of capitalism. In the stands, the man with his hands on his hips and his head tilted back searches for answers. People, man, they love hurting people. Whatever these women do, like others, they want to see the world. The money change happened so fast, nobody had time to think. And while I could end there, I have no desire to. I need a history more complete. So I continue with my father's story, making up details as I go along. Making up details as I go along, I held my hands up to the generals. I walked around investigating the endless star, an empty net, the fish trapped inside the wind. The first night was wonderful, adrift amid the remnants. In the empty house, I hear the sea. The boats were manned by brothers, uncles, cousins, blood ties, a bond love can twist. All the years by the sea taught her every definition of blue. There was a lot of lechery and disorder, and I am queen on that island. In March of 2003, Normando Hernandez Gonzalez was among 75 Cuban journalists who were arrested in what became known as the Black Spring. And this next poem was found in interviews on his experience. Black Spring. I held my breath under the bed, curled like a knot against the wall. They searched cars, they searched everywhere, searched everything. A small incandescent bulb lit 24 hours a day. I always talked. If I had the desire to speak, I spoke. My only sunlight hours, Monday through Friday at noon. All 7 of us remained in solidarity. We began our hunger strike on the 13th of August. They took everything, including the mattress from the bed. All they left me was my underwear. The cell was completely boarded up, a small crack at the top of the door. If I stood on 5 books, I could look out into the prison. There was not an inch of me without a mosquito bite. Small red bumps on every part of my body. I never could sleep in that cell. To get through something like this, you think about your family. I believe that was my wife's saddest experience. She doesn't even like to speak of it, of when they let her see me. I didn't stand up when they did head counts. I wouldn't dress in prisoner's clothes. I never addressed any guard or official by rank. I was beaten with rubber sticks. In Cuba, even to breathe is illegal. To breathe, if you breathe the air and while taking it in, you don't praise the government, you are being unlawful. It's as if the sky and the earth are going to come together and crush you, and no one will notice it's happening. Leaving prison was like being born with experience. Everything I do is motivated by love. There are remnants that remain. I would like to forget, but unfortunately, I cannot forget, and this is how it is. Exilio. Conch shell pink. This sky echoes an ocean, a song weighted with pearls and sea glass. Mercedes, what did you make of Miami? Did it taste like sunlight on your wrist? White mariposa, replaced by ribbon orchid. Jasmine, a scent of dreams. And flamenco, castanets cast on the ground. Your granddaughter will seek you in 100 mirrors. In Castile, in Cuba, she'll twine a history with silver thread. The ocean will rise up to whisper in her ear. Spanish. Speak its measured notes. Recall the year long in paper, the cargo ship sent, a single rolling wave. The sailors, tick them off your fingers, melodious. Listen, you cannot even name his brothers, and abuelas becomes a hymn. Mercedes, 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 a song to weed the garden by, Mercedes. This is how we lose the language, how we lose ourselves to myth, to legend, and how you find me with regrets only. And the last poem I'm going to read for you this evening is called Andalusia. A moment longer, it may not have rubbed off the bougainvillea stain, its wine blossom. Rough is the face of Serena de Ron, and rough the sand that spills from your palm. Darker than expected, night over the Mediterranean Sea. Strange to you, these hot stars, white like mijas, and their ascent as hard. Had you known, would you still complete the journey? No habla español. Habla inglés, por favor. ¿Qué hora es? Time. We are speaking of time. How long it takes a stain to set, a flower to blossom. More than a morning? The Acanto inspired columns, and nothing you promise will coax the palomas to follow you home. Thank you so much, everyone.
Well, with our muted hands, we're applauding. That was just so powerful and beautiful and terrible at the same time. Thank you so much, Suzanne, for reading for us.
Thank you all for having me. It's so wonderful to see so many people out here for poetry.
Yeah. All right. Our next reader will be Tara Lynn Masih. She is a National Jewish Book Award finalist and winner of a Julia Ward Howe Award for her debut novel, My Real Name is Hanna. Her anthologies include the Rose Medal Press Field Guide to Writing Flash Fiction and the Chalk Circle, Intercultural Prizewinning Essays. How We Disappear, Novella Stories is her second collection from Press 53. She founded the Best Small Fictions series in 2015. Additional awards for her work include the Lou P. Bunce Creative Writing Award, the Ledge Magazine's Fiction Award, a finalist fiction grant from the Massachusetts Cultural Council, Wigleaf Top 50 recognition, and Pushcart Prize nominations for both fiction and creative nonfiction. Please welcome Tara Lynn Masih.
Well, thank you, everybody, especially to Simmons for organizing this, to Allison for sponsoring it and hosting. And I had posted on Facebook that I was completely starstruck by this panel. And I'm sort of the prose person that crashed the poetry reading. I'm actually more of a prose writer at this point in my life. Although I did used to write poetry at the beginning of my career, and I think you're going to hear some of that influence in the prose that I'm going to read tonight. I'm going to start off by reading a flash fiction piece. It's just 2 pages, and it appears in the short story collection that just published, How We Disappear. It's set in Costa Rica, and I'm decided I wanted to read it in honor of the hurricane victims in Southwest Florida. So even though it's set in Costa Rica, there's some parallels to what happened. So if you had stopped, maybe you saw me as you left the beach, as you passed by on the highway. I was the woman holding up the fresh cargo by the side of the road. Maybe you saw how hot I was, standing in the sun, trying to sell the red snapper from my cramped hands, fish caught by my husband at the mouth of the Parita River. You just rafted down. You see, his family got swallowed by the river too many times. His land is now as barren as a dried up, dusty riverbed. Nothing grows there, just tumbled rocks. If you had stopped, I would have given you the best fish you ever tasted. I would have told you how to build a fire pit on the next beach you travel to, how to line it with banana leaves, how to roast the cargo on a stone. You would have agreed, as you picked around the thorny skeleton, that it was worth a stop. But you did not stop. Maybe you read my hand-lettered cardboard sign as a warning. Or maybe you didn't want fish bought on the street, handled and held up by my hands. Maybe you don't even like fish. Maybe you don't know this is all we can do for ourselves, since our river takes everything away. If you had stopped, I might have told you about Silver, my husband of 10 years, who bottom fishes over reefs and wrecks. He looks for clean water where the cargo live. His farmer hands are looking like skin from the mangrove crocodiles, scarred from the hard fishing lines that cut like the razor teeth of the cargo he hunts. He has no gloves. The river took them. If you had paid for our fish, you might have noticed my wrist as it wrapped newsprint, carefully avoiding the spiny fin around the fish body, the petaled bruise tattooing the soft underbelly of my skin, impressed by the desperate Silver trying to pull me into submission. The road I stand by can look like a river in the pressing heat. As I wait and sweat, no water to drink, the asphalt shimmers with airy waves of heat. They mimic the patterns of the sun where it sends itself through water waves down to the bottom of the sea, which I have swum to in better times. The road keeps us safe and dry, for El Parita crests its banks now almost yearly. We have nowhere else to run to, the mountains far away. So when we hear the alert, we flee to the highway and camp there with a few things we save. Watch everything else flow back in the clutch of the sea's gluttonous river arms. Imagine there are whole villages somewhere out there, down where the sunlight ripples, maybe even our people. Some of us get washed away, swept off our feet, or still in rusty cars. Your grandfather is driving eternally, my grandmother told me as one of my bedtime stories, in his old battered Land Rover, trying to find us. Can you hear his horn in your sleep? If you had put this fish meat in your mouth, maybe you would have tasted it all. The broiling river, the metal of pots and pans and foundations, the wet woven clothing, the sewage, the rainbow oil and gasoline might have left a film on your tongue, and the bodies of our lost ones might have satisfied your hunger. It is what we taste every evening when we roast and eat what you pass by. So the final piece I'm going to read is the basically the introduction to a short story that appeared in Terrain. The title is In a Sulfate Mist. And I don't know if Jennifer Jean is on tonight or not, but she's a poet that I admire. And I love this little piece in one of her poems titled The Prisoner. and I use it as an epigram to this. So I want to read the epigram first. The mayflies can be seen mating in flight. It is a kind of love in the sulfate mist. And I love that line, in the sulfate mist. So I got her permission to steal it, and it became the title, In a Sulfate Mist. And again, very grateful to Rain for publishing it. So I'm just going to read the beginning because it's a little long, but I wanted to lighten the mood after the last piece. So I'm known as being sort of a dark writer. Most of my stuff has dark undertones, but this is one of the few pieces that has a little bit, just a tiny bit of humor in there. And it comes mostly later in the story, but there's some hints here. So In the Sulfate Mist. I meet men online now, not in bars anymore. That became too desperate, and I got tired of the men looking at the women with the lightest blonde hair and the shortest skirts. Can't do short anymore. This one I met recently, he found me first. Emails, Skype, and now I'm in a town along the Mississippi River, in a rental, trying to find his house in the dark. It's raining, and the GPS keeps redirecting me when I make wrong turns, till I realize it's not rain, but bugs slapping the windshield. Soon, it's a storm of black bugs. The wipers smear them on the glass so I can almost not see. The voice on the GPS is telling me to take another right, and as I do, I keep turning, sliding, almost going off the road. But I bring the car back out of the roadside weeds, my heart pumping. I pass two cars with hazards on. I figure they know something I don't. I pull over and call Joe, the guy I'm driving toward, on my cell. It's the hatch, he says. Sorry it's happening now. Can't be predicted. It's mayflies. Harmless, but bad for driving. Causes lots of accidents when they hit at night. Stay on course and go slowly with your brights on. Stay on course. Stay on course, I chant to myself, leaning forward into the steering wheel. Don't worry about what you may have gotten yourself into. Don't worry that you didn't tell anyone where you were going. Have faith in your judgment. Have faith you won't disappear. The hatch is everywhere, falling, rising, flying around the golden streetlights. I pass a gas station, empty. The pumps under the island look furry with the bugs. At one point, I have to pull over and grab a wash and dry out of my purse to clean off a spot to see through on my windshield. I just make things a hazy mess. I scream in frustration where no one will hear. When I get back in the car in defeat, they come with me, on my arms, my shoulders, my hair. Why brush them away? I continue on because it's easier to move forward than backward. The bug's wings flutter from the updraft of the defrost. It's like I suddenly have hundreds of my own little wings carrying me to this new man. If you've never done this, it can be really awkward meeting someone in person who you've only seen online. But this is not like any meeting I've had before. How do you meet a guy when you're covered in bugs? The GPS tells me I have arrived. I keep going. I stop at the end of the lane. I back up. I sit quietly outside the dark house that only has on one dim light all the way to the right. He's an electrician. I have to get through the swarm. I call again. I'm here. Can you open the door so I can run in? Sure. Can't put the light on or they'll come in. Just aim for the door and it'll be open when you get to the top step. Deep breaths so I don't inhale them, and then I push out with my purse and head for the screen door that opens just in time. I tumble in. Not the way a woman wants to meet a man. Joe brushes a few hatchlings from my hair, and when I think he is leaning in for a kiss, he turns on a vacuum with his foot and runs the nozzle over me. It keeps getting stuck on my clothing, gets quieter, then pops free. He keeps doing this, sucking and popping, till they look all gone. I'm a scarecrow in a field covered in tiny black birds. He makes each one disappear. I've ignored all the red flags before, the locked cell phones, the post-nasal drips, the collections of newspapers piled halfway to the ceiling, But this was biblical, what I'd slipped and slid into. This was like God saying, not only your world, but the whole world will end if you stay with this guy. The hatch, as he called it, lasted through the night. They're attracted to the light, he said again, to fill the quiet space. He was explaining why all the lights were off once I got there. Then he put me to bed where I could smell his piney laundry liquid all night and into the morning. At least he'd washed the sheets for me. When the sun rose, I was so grateful to see it. The end.
Fantastic, fantastic. Wow.
Thank you.
I love that title, In a Sulfate Mist, and what a tale, man. Now I got to read the rest of it. Sure, for sure.
Well, and yes, again, thank Jennifer Jean, talented poet, for the inspiration there.
100 of little wings carrying you toward this man. I mean, that's just hilarious and dark in a charming way. So thank you so much, Tara, for that reading. And now let's invite Allison Adelle Hedge to read. She is a Fulbright scholar, the first Jade-nurtured Sihui Female International Poetry Award recipient, recent Dan and Margie Inouye Distinguished Chair in Democratic Ideals, and Library of Congress Witterbinner Fellow. She's written 7 books of poetry, 1 book of nonfiction, and a play. Her newest book, hooray, hooray, a very brave and bold book, Look at This Blue, is a 2022 National Book Award finalist for poetry. Following former field worker retraining in Santa Paula and Ventura, California in the mid-1980s, she began teaching and is now a distinguished professor of creative writing at the University of California, Riverside. Hedge is the editor of 10 anthologies and has served as an editor and guest editor for several magazines and journals, most recently World Literature Today. The social media hashtag Poem Prompts for the Pandemic hosts hundreds of original prompts she crafted as public outreach during the COVID-19 pandemic. A career community advocate and organizer, she most recently directed UC Riverside's Writers Week, the Along the Chaparral Puawaina Project, and the Sandhill Crane Migratory Literary Retreat and Festival. Please welcome Allison Adelle Hedge.
Thank you, Allison. It's really lovely to be here with you hosting. Thank you for emceeing for us. And shout out to terrain.org and the great auction that's going on. Please take time to look through and support all of the work that so many people have had a hand in this very wonderful organization, magazine, and center for environmental thought. Thanks to Simmons for inviting us. So much love to Suzanne and Tara for their readings, and to all of you for attending today. Thank you for being here. So I'm going to read some excerpts from the poem, Look at This Blue. It's a book-length assemblage piece. So the excerpts will not necessarily be in order or page to page, just as a heads up. And thanks again for attending tonight. This is from Look at This Blue. Oh, I have to start my clock or I'll go over. Okay, this is from Look at This Blue. Once the world was gleaming, open, we entered unknowing, believing all we came to we must deserve, knowing we did not, faced extinction. Look at this blue, Urxus blue butterfly from the sand dunes of San Francisco, the first known American butterfly to become extinct due to humans, first known. Redwood burls cut like blisters shaved from trunks, poach life source from root. killing giants in knobby growth removals, baseline, canopy height, bud tissue, unsprouted genetic code for clone of parent tree emergence. Barrel at my mouth, ready cocked, held there by my baby brother's bared grip. Lemon wedge half moon pops over, flat consume shallow over sweet sound, low rustle in lodi water. Chortle trill, night language from standing cranes, sandhills, they've been there all along, standing still knee-deep in station pools. Orion hovering eastward, drawn, readied. Someone slinks past door jamb, each chokehold, failed vaporizes cognizance. In a world fast shaking herself loose from diabolical torrent, rising throttle song above throttle breath, choked out between calligraphies, madness clenched fury, unfurled release, misery met in each pummeled break, it's not over. Sleep in despair, sleeping moth-tongued, unrolled against central incisors, human-throated, deep yearns for saxophone, trachea windpipe, sandhills chortle only saving grace, wetlands marshaled, nothing here on guardian watch. Riverside, reaching back for slip skateboard, he was hit so hard he flew while breaking. A crow above whose wings were sunning swooped at the same time the car careened to halt. On Martin Luther King Road, near Boardwell Park, East Side, where the speed limit suddenly increases while approaching two close crosswalks leading to homes from Stratton Community Center, Boardwell, Emerson Elementary, East Side, black, brown kids, elders. Anyone can see someone once worked this out. It's all going to burn, says the man accused of setting holy fire. First the puma and Santa Paula palm branch, then coyotes, fox, rabbits appear, birds overcome sky, plume, then an entire yard, a carpet of undulating fleas, so thick wrapping bread bags over feet and ankles barely make it passable. Everything escaping, heat from fire-stormed arson. 120,000 acres, blanket fired, Los Padres National Forest and more, choking like the child they found, still hung there. Sleep in the dream of bettering world, sleep in the dream, nightmare woken, what we carry howls, boggling. Her cheek contorts in flames, unfanned yet fanning. She eclipses all asunder, all broken, scar-face vision and temporal melt. Somewhere on my left face, you can still see where it was sewn back on. On the right, the line across the eyelid where it was sewn back on. On the abdomen, the line where it was sewn back, sewn back, sewn back, and somewhere on my right hand where it was sewn. All the heres and theres were sewn. All the biopsies, removals, explorations, assaults, sewn. What we carry's weep, wet-haired. Her cheek contorts when sprayed by guard. From the first time she attempted, her neck ached. Meanwhile here, a third body in Baldwin Hills fire. More missing, arson again. Someone is out there. Look at this blue. Palo Verdes blue from the Palo Verdes Peninsula, one of the best claims to being the world's rarest butterfly, first thought extinct by development, newly returned, lays eggs on deerweed. Notice the patterning on the underside of wing. Remember along the way, the murdered sow bear, her cubs taken for claws. We're all just symptoms of something massive, faster over. They're killing us, weaponizing nature, sanctifying arms, consecrating each Traeger-flixed hand. Dad in his 80s, up on the trailer roof, a sprayer in hand, fighting back ignition, not leaving till everyone leaves. Or the time he battled out of being rolled, just smoothly turned his cane horizontal. asking the punks who should join him when he dies soon enough, until they scramble across the Kmart parking lot. Trigger turned to my face, every right to bear bitter, every night schemed daybreak flash. There's no need to fictionalize this dude. He is what he is, what man made, what man. Sliced labia squamous, first time somewhere mid-20s, missing children, women taken somewhere. For me, it was a gully, a pond, a base, a van, a hall, a window. Broken branch and canopy, trees like fingers like stiff blade through my right hand, the bone handle separating knuckles, like gales tearing muscle bearing my keen weight, or E. coli, some salad in the back aisle, an invader like this guy, too idiotic to merit note past criminal code, when pressing limits, cruelties as a method of stopping poems so they could not escape, no matter the musescape, Santa Ana's floods, frost on orange grove. Look at this blue. Enigma, can we use this? Not in the way Lopez would. Call me Bruja. When plant hangers split, the oranges flew unaided, or chairs bobbed like mergansers in quake. Northridge was maybe the wildest we met, a pipe bomb, some believed. Behind us was Liminaria, a town of a camp and now some suburbia development, but then all sorts of workers and growers. Rancho Cespi, Floricantos, La Lucha we would go, Santa Paula, Fillmore, Piru, Oxnard Strawberries, Satakoy Records, Ventura Gold Beaches, Hot Peppers shouldering Blood Alley, Ventura Freeway 126, oleanders, eucalyptus, rhododendron. I came from the camps too, not these, but I served these children's. And decades ago, when Olive Land's 7-year-old girl wrote, "My eyes are the green of August," I still see her eyes, her August now. Look at this blue, mutant blue-eyed coyotes, chance mutation, baby blues and 9 coyotes suggest proliferation, silvery, brown-backed, with icy blue eyes, antenna ears turning satellite hearing bowls. This is before I could express myself. My chin was still positioned ready, or chin down and ghosting into horizons that you can't see. How many times was I given up, left for dead, rejected, objectified, ejected? Does it matter? Look at this blue, Mission Blue Butterfly from coastal Chaparral, grasslands, Mission District, San Francisco, Twin Peaks, Marin County, Moster upon San Bruno Mountain, the small, delicate, gossamer winged male, iridescent blue lavender female, dark brown, blue base, fringed in long, white, hair-like scales. The undersides are spotted, her wings spread 1 to 1.5 inches. Caterpillars solely ingest the native California lupine, eat silver, summer, varicolor, lupine. The adults drink flower nectar, buckwheat, golden aster, wild hyacinth, endangered first by developers. The public infrastructure development projects remain the most significant threat. Mercy, mercy. Oh, mercy, mercy, me. Perforating his hung, lard, liver, Los Angeles County coroner, he was shot twice. Oh, mercy, look at this blue, the blue whale alongside Monterey, San Diego, Baja, the gentle giant, heaviest animal to ever live on earth, twice Argentinosaurus. The ship strikes kill 11 per year, U.S. West Coast with the ship increase. The population will deplete. Noise, military testing, sonic battery, chemicals, plastic, krill, anchovy, the tiny fish, the tiny crustaceans absorb microplastic. A blue whale eats between 2 and 4 tons of krill per day. Blue with a belly full of plastic. In the bus on the way to retraining for field workers, we left Santa Paula for Ventura daily. rhododendron, eucalyptus, liminaria, red-winged hawks every mile on watch like us for movement. X, Santa Paula, North Star of Vanuatu, Muku or Shumash, we escaped here too. Refugees, we closed our eyes, let finger conjure map, conjure home. This is where from here everything changes. Rewrite, reset, reverb, offer projects for Santa Ynez kids at get-go, offer self, send for my folks to follow. Dad notes, note this, if there is any snow on Topa Topa, everything's okay. Here in the shadows, leaves keep life close, fruit, the taste of it, dusk following plant, rows around crates, comfort here, home. There's nothing like a bed under stars when we need it. Your palms know where to go. What they imagine leads you. Everything we muster moves us along. Like water mirrors itself, remembers where to flow and how to go there. In the dream, you follow. In the dream, we fly over all of this direness, float vaquitas, we move like smallest porpoises, undulate in air, like swimming, arms tight against our sides, California spread below us, manzanitas gleaming in sun, the stars ahead in darkness await our time there. For now, it's the offering we make. Will you take me as I am, California? Thank you.
Wow, what a powerful reading. What a sweep of energy you've brought us into. Thank you so much. We love your project. The comments are so astonishing. You'll get a chance to look at them. We're all very compelled. Thank you so much. Well, you see why we brought these three astonishing women together to hear their works, which are both beautiful and terrible in all the ways we need to hear. So I would like to open this up to questions. If anybody has a question for the whole group or for any individual artist, you can pop it up in the chat and we will have you ask your questions live. So I guess I could start. It's hard to know where to start. I was just trying to think of the common thread in the three, and what popped into my mind was this notion of radical displacements, you know, with Suzanne, the radical displacement of home in Cuba, and with Tara, that really chilling story of all that the river took in Costa Rica. And then, of course, with Allison, the many displacements that sweep through that awareness of our moment in time. Is that a place to start? Could you each say something about you know, how poetry, these poems maybe are an answer and a grounding against that sense of displacement you all speak about so powerfully? Does anybody want to pick up that ball and take a little run with it?
All right, I'll go first.
Thanks, Tara.
Well, first of all, that piece that I read, it's really interesting because the book just came out, and you know, you're always looking for reviews and seeing what people think. And there are people who love that little brief story, and then there are other people who called it weird. I don't know what's weird about it to them, but that's actually the writer that I'm trying to reach when I'm writing this kind of work. Not necessarily people who are going to appreciate it and know what I'm talking about. I want to try and reach the person who has never maybe quite looked at that person that they drove by, and maybe next time we'll look, or we'll go back and think, you know, why do I think that's a weird story? Or, you know, why do I think it's, you know, why did it bother me? There were some reviewers who I was very happy to say did say that there was some discomfort when they read some of my work. And again, I'm not that I'm trying to make people feel uncomfortable, but I want them to question, what it is like for other people who are displaced, and to think twice about, especially in these really divisive times, to just give it a second thought and look at people slightly differently, even if it feels weird to them.
Thank you, Tara. I think you're muted, Suzanne.
Hi. With Fixstar, it was like a quest to put together the fragments of my history, my personal history, and also to uncover the costs of assimilation. Often people come here, I don't think my parents had bad intentions, to make us assimilate. It was very painful for my father to speak of Cuba. He was a captain in the Cuban Revolution. And so when he left, he had been fighting for democracy. And then Castro, just pulled a fast one and he had to leave. So that displacement, the inability to go and learn, the erasure, because it was too painful for him to talk about, and my inability to go over there because of the embargo, and the fact that Castro thought considered me a Cuban citizen. I didn't even know if I went there through some other way, if I could come back, right? So it was interesting, and it's sad. You hear so many immigrant stories about your ancestors and where you come from and who you are. And it leaves you with the feeling when you're assimilated in this way, as feeling like an outsider in both cultures, It's tough. I know that that is changing, but there's a whole swath of generation like me that it's an odd place to be here in America. And I'm a little shook. So I don't know if I'm shook by Look at This Blue, listening to Allison. So I'm having a tough time making sense. So thanks.
Oh, you're making perfect sense.
The displacement is everywhere. I mean, it's all around. There's so much manipulation of the planet as we know it. I quoted this the other day, but I'll say it again. Matthew Shinoda, great poet, Coptic Egyptian poet, coincidentally from Ventura, California, calls the U.S. the great homewrecker, because not only do people come in and take refuge here, but once here and if from here even originally, everyone is split up, if not by political displacement, then by economic displacement. And of course, the rest of all the other living beings with us, with so much human activity that's got such malbehavior behind it, there's not room for something just to be what it is in its own place and time. So it's a big part of everything in this, and probably in everything all three of us do, for that matter. Just echoing what both Tara and Suzanne just noted. And when I wrote it too, I was also not first time in a country, but visiting. But the time before was very brief, and this time I had arrived to live and work during a Fulbright. So I landed when I started writing in something that was really unfamiliar to a large degree, and had that space and time and that unfamiliar place. So displaced by choice in that, and it allowed me to come into intersections with that displacement, I think, in a way that was pretty rich for me during the writing process. So definitely a part of all that. Yeah, thank you, Allison. That was a really good question to ask. And a heart out to everybody here who has gone through those relocations, many times unwanted relocations because of things that are happening in life. be it something that we are escaping from, which could be political, could be economic, could be violence in any form and shape it comes in, and the work we're always following and trying to survive in this society, which is also a critical mass as it is. Well, not to get too dark, but yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, all three of you. Any questions from our other participants? We would welcome them, certainly. I can come up with another one if need be, but I don't want to exclude a burning question that somebody is feeling a little bit shy about asking. So please pop that question up if you would like to ask it. Sometimes it's hard after a reading, and this was such a powerful one. It's hard to know what your questions are. Well, let me ask a question. I noticed in the comments, people were talking about, for each of you, you know, how lyric you were, and some things about cadence. And, you know, we toss that around all the time, you know, lyric essay, and oh, there's so much lyricism in that work. But, you know, there was such music, both in the prose of Tara and in the poetry of Suzanne and Allison, and you know, the force sometimes of a work is driven forward by that music and sense of cadence. I don't know if there's a question there, but maybe the question is this: how mindful are you of your music when you're writing, or is it something you go back, like when I'm writing, I go back and man, I can hear the clunkers. I can just hear the clunkers, and I know something's wrong if it's a clunker. And I have to go back and revise for cadence or music. And I'd be interested to know for each of you, because I felt the power of cadence and music in all of you, whether, you know, how that works in your process, how mindful you are of it, or if it's just a beautiful gift that you all have to sweep us into your music. Anybody want to jump on that?
Yeah, I'm happy to start this time. My early childhood memories are formed by music. My mother had schizophrenia. My dad had transistor radios. For all of us kids, even when we were tiny, we were surrounded by transistors. And I was born the year that Motown really became a thing. And so much, I had chemotherapy one time, and well, many times, but one time I met the Trexate, and a side effect is Tourette's syndrome, and my Tourette's was Motown. It just came out, and I had no control. It sounded like the radio, luckily not me, but I had no control over it. It just was coming out in many inappropriate places. But they said that that's your formative memories. Most people hear parents arguing when they're infants, and so they're cursing a lot with their Tourette's. And me, I was just singing Motown. So it's very deep in me. I heard the music of this particular book long before I began to write the language, and that's typical for me. I usually hear music long before I get to the page and start writing, so it does drive me. I'm sure that's true for a lot of other writers as well.
Suzanne, you're unmuted. You want to go next?
Sure. That is, the musicality is what probably comes easiest for me. I think there's like 4 parts. I forget who said it. There's like a, you know, some people are more musical, someone has, you know, and some people are more narrative. But for me, I think that comes, you know, even when I don't think I'm musical and then I read it, then you can hear the music. So I think that music in my childhood as well was something that probably just is inside. I used to worry, for a while there, it wasn't fashionable to be that musical. So I would worry a little bit about it, that I wasn't in fashion or trendy. But then I just was like, this is, you know, I accepted it. So it's interesting to me when I hear people say they go back to edit for musicality. You know, it's fascinating to me, the way we all come to it in different ways, you know, and probably whatever you do, whatever your gift is, is one that I need to like work on myself, right? So.
Yeah, that's a perfect lead into my answer. I think I mentioned that I used to write poetry, 30 years ago, but I consider myself sort of a failed poet. I definitely was not as good at it as the prose, but it definitely made its way into my prose work. And I often tell people as an editor, when they're going back and doing revisions, that they should always read, prose writers, they should read their work aloud. I do that, and that's, as you said, talking about the clunkers. When you're reading it out loud and you stumble or something doesn't sound right, you can often catch it. So for me, it's not so much about music. It's about the language and the words and how they're working together. And I don't like to read other writers who don't have some of that. It bores me just to read straight narrative. There has to be something special about the way that they put words together and the way that they sound for me to be invested enough to like read a whole book. So it's my preference for reading. And as I said, I want to be able, when I read my work out loud, to like it. So.
Right. Well, thank you all, and thank you, readers, for your great generosity with us tonight. I see some of our participants are heading off for their supper, and maybe we're ready to wind down. Is this a question, Lisa?
A thought, that's all.
Okay. Well, Simmons, what do you think? I want to thank you for bringing this stunning group together. It's really been a powerful and haunting evening.
It really has been a powerful and haunting evening. And Allison Deming, thank you so much for, again, for hosting and sponsoring this reading. And I want to thank, of course, Suzanne and Tara and Allison for reading tonight, for really presenting such power here. Your work is so important to terrain.org, and I know to many folks here and to me personally, so thank you for that. And I think with that, we'll wrap up. So thanks everyone for joining us. Keep an eye out for our November reading. And before we sign off, let's get one more round of applause, please, for our readers this evening. Or handshakes or snaps. I'm not cool that way. I'm just going to pretend to clap. So thank you all, and have a wonderful evening. Oh, and go to the online auction and bid on Allison's book and other stuff. And
come take a hike with me on Grand Manan.
That's right, and get a poem critiqued by Suzanne Frischkorn.
Yes.
Good stuff going on. Yes, thank you all.
Thank you, Terrain.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks so much.
Thank
Great
you.
to be here.
Beautiful.
I'm going to put this link in here for
Thanks,
everybody
everybody.
hanging
It was
on.
great.